Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
The title of my paper is Halal Seafood as per 5 major Islamic jurisprudences. It is a comparative and reasoning study. In fact, from the afternoon, you are listening to the political issues on the ISIS and the other things, but maybe you think that it is maybe irrelevant because most of the paper were on the political issues, but in fact, it is relevant because ISIS also is following fiqh, kind of fiqh. So normally ISIS is following the Zahiri and the literally meaning of the words and the phrases and the terms. So they belong to the Zahiri school of interpretation in Islam and Hanbali. So from this point of view, the paper is relevant to the ISIS because they are following the Hanbali and Zahiri school of fiqh. And in particular, I just want to have a comparative studies on seafood because there are some differences in the fiqh, among the Muslim fiqh. So I try to study. Many people, when we used to go to the restaurant, they ask about what is halal and what is haram, and many people also interested to know what is the basis of these differences. So I thought it is better to study on this issue and try to categorize these differences. So based on that, I try to have a study, and I have gone deep to the reasoning studies. That means I went and studied the sources of the fiqh and why these fiqhs are different from each other. So I have divided the paper in few chapters: introduction, and halal food in the primary sources like Quran and Sunnah, and halal food from the jurisprudential point of view, which I have divided the various views in 2 categories. One is all seafoods are halal with few exceptions. The other one is all seafoods are prohibited with few exceptions. So it's a very big differences between these 2 groups. And finally, I came to the conclusion. Here I try to, in the introduction, I try to answer to some of these normal questions. What is the importance of the issue? And also the aim of the studies and the scope of the studies and also method. So I try to answer this in the introductions. We know that in Islam, haram and halal are very important issues. So normally haram and halal and the standards of lifestyle among the Muslims is very important issue, and in the dietary standards also is very important. In food standards also, haram and halal are very important issue. Halal and haram, that means prohibited or permitted standards. So it is important for Muslims also it is important for non-Muslims. For Muslim it is important because normally Islam is a very law-oriented religion. It has many law, rule and regulation about all aspects of life, individuals and also collectively on social issues, political issues. It is a really very law-oriented religion. So it is very important for Muslims to know these standards, and also for non-Muslim it is important because non-Muslim also have ties with Muslims. They have a very close relation with Muslims. They have these days, in the global world, many Muslims are in different continents, so it is very important for non-Muslim also to know about these issues. So that means what is halal and haram, what is prohibited or what is permitted in Islam, on seafood especially we are talking. Other than that friendly relation that they have together, from the market point of view also is very important because Muslims have very, very large market in the world because their numbers are huge number in the world. So the market is very attractive for Muslims and for non-Muslims too. So many companies, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, wants to know what is halal and what is haram, what is the dietary food standards. Because they want to sell their products in the Muslim world. So it is very important for them. The aim of so this is very important issue from the importance. The subject is very important, and the aim of the study is to examine halal and haram seafood from the main 5 Islamic jurisprudence, which is Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanafi, Hanbali, and Shia. These are the major fiqh in Islam. So the aim and objective is this, and also the scope of the study also is just about these few 5 jurisprudence. The method of the studies is qualitative and also comparative reasoning studies. In second chapter, I have discussed the halal seafood in the primary sources that in Quran and Sunnah. Why some of the foods are permitted and why some of them are prohibited. In Quran, few verses of Quran normally is cited by the jurists. One about one general rule is coming from the first, and normally they say permitted to you is the game of the sea and the food of it. So based on these verses of Quran, they have come to one general rule that whatever you have from sea, it is halal and permitted. So this is the verses of Quran. And we have 2 or 3 ayahs like this in Quran. Just I have quoted one here because to shorten it. But the general rules coming from this. That means whatever food you collect and get from the sea, it is permitted and it is halal. So they want to, but in fact I will explain what is the differences. in Quran we have another verses which exempted from this general law, exempted the dead body of the animals, the carrions, that means the dead body of the animals are prohibited, blood is prohibited, the flesh of the swine is prohibited, pork also prohibited. So these first verses, it is a general issue, says in general, whatever you get from the fishing from the sea, it is permitted and it is halal. But in the second one, there is some exception about whether the dead flesh of the seafoods, whether the fishes which dead at the sea, whether they are halal or not, permitted or not. So there are some dispute also on some animal of the sea, like because we have some similarity, like some in the animals in the sea are similar to the land animals, like a dog or like a pork, what is that, the pig. So there is some dispute whether this verse, whether this include also this verse include also the animals which we have in the sea in general, or just dog and pig are haram, which is living on the land. So this is also another dispute. We have also the primary sources. We have also prophetic traditions, the Sunnah. In Sunnah, normally Quran, when talk about the general, about the interpretation and about the details, refer Muslims to go and ask Prophet Muhammad for interpretation and for details. Based on these verses of Quran, normally people go in Sunnah and refer to the Sunnah and to find what is haram and what is halal from Prophet Muhammad's point of view. All the Sunnah, all the prophetic traditions of Prophet Muhammad has been collected in the books, hadith books and tradition books, which they have divided all these in two groups. These traditions are in two chapters. One halal and haram seafood, and another one under the hunting and fishing. So in these two chapters, most of the Prophet Muhammad saying they have put and classified all those traditions in these two chapters in the books of Sunnah. So with this, I am going to the third part. So in the sources only, we come to know about some generals, and when we refer to Prophet Muhammad saying, there are some dispute also on interpretation, on authenticity of some sunnahs and some narratives. So we are going to discuss these issues in this third part of the paper, which it is on fiqh, halal seafood from the jurisprudential point of view. In general, I have categorized the major jurisprudential opinion. I have categorized in two sections, two parts. One opinion and one fatwa is all seafoods are halal with few exceptions. And the second one says all seafoods are haram with few exceptions. This is the very big difference. So it is based on Quran interpretation, and it is also coming from some interpretation or what is that jurisprudential foundation which they have. So I am going to explain in brief. Normally, Maliki fiqh, Shafi'i fiqh, majority of Shafi'is, and also Hanafi Maliki, Hanbali, and Hanafi are in this first group. No, sorry, Shafi'i majority. Shafi'i majority, Maliki, and Hanbali. They are in first group. In the second group, mostly Hanafi, minority of Shafi'i, and Shia. So these are two groups. So here, those groups, that means the Maliki, majority of Shafi'i, and Hanbali in the first group, they says in Quran normally emphasize that whatever have got from the sea, it is halal. So they have emphasized on this general rule. Whatever you get from the sea, fishing, all are halal for you. So it is a general rule. They say it is general. It is coming from Quran. This is the general, they say, but based on the exception which they have in Sunnah, normally they have exception on those animals which is similar to pig, similar to dog. They say these are, because they are animal of the, that means sea of the dog of the sea, or for example pig of the sea. Because of this similarity, they say only these two animals are haram. So in general, they take from Quran, but in Sunnah, they says we can just emphasize that these two are exceptions. But in fact, most of them, they says it is the animal of sea, the dogs of the sea, or the animal which are similar to pig. In fact, they are not really dog, and they are not really pig. So they say this, since they have similarity, people used to call them, for example, dog or pig. But in reality, they are not dog or they are not pig. So based on this, in general, mostly they emphasize on this general which they have found from Quran. They say generally what you have get from the sea, fishing, it is halal for you. So based on this, with the few exceptions that they have, they say in general food, seafood are halal. So you can see when you go with the Muslim to seafood restaurant, you see that they don't avoid and they eat whatever you bring. So this is based on these three factors. But the second group, normally they say fish are halal. Fish are halal. So they say this general that you are using, it is not general rule of Quran, because it is this ayah is about pilgrimage, about Hajj pilgrimage. When you have a special white clothes in Hajj, you have certain limitation in using many things, and you are not allowed to have a hunting. You have a hunting. For example, hunting is not permitted during the period which you are in ihram, when you are wearing that white clothes. So hunting is not permitted. But in this ayah says, hunting the land animal, it is not permitted. When you are in ihram or that white clothes, you are not permitted to have a hunting on land. But the second ayah which it says that it is permitted for you to have a fishing. So based on this issue, normally this second group, that means the Hanafis and minority of Shafi'i and Shia, says that this is not general. it says, for example, before that you have some rules. That means rules, it says that fishing is halal for you. So during the ihram, it is also continued. So it is only for, that means those things were halal before, you are halal for, is halal for you during the ihram also. That means when you are wearing also, it is halal. It's not all food from the sea. So this general, according to this interpretation, will be limited. So based on this interpretation, we have these two groups. So in Hanafi, only they can have fish in Hanafi fiqh. And also minority of Shafi'i also, they also have only take fish. Okay, and the Shia also, Shia says scale fish. They have add another one. They say scaly fish. Only scaly fish are halal and shrimp. So I have come to this conclusion. So according to this standard, we have we have North African country, mostly they are following Maliki. And from Egypt, Hanafi starts and it comes to Turkey, and these places are Hanafi. And when you come to East Asia, most of them are Shafi'i. So according to this, a company which is going to produce, for example, seafood, it is better to follow, to pay attention to this culture. For example, many airlines today, they are asking before you have a flight, they are asking about your dietary and what is your taste. So in this case, those airlines which they fly in these areas, they should know the deep culture of the Muslim in these areas, and to be aware of the culture and philosophy. It is very important for companies, because they should know the culture and the philosophy which customers normally follow. So in general, I come to this conclusion that one dietary standard in seafood, it's very common among all of them. That means if they produce a scaly fish, all Muslims, and also the shrimp and a scaly fish, all Muslims can take. So a company which produce, for example, foods which is shrimp or a scaly fish, all Muslims can use it. From the east to west of the world, all Muslims can use it. But the other things, the other products, only they have the limitation based on the fact that they follow. And in conclusion also, I have just summarized why, based on what reason they are different from each other, I have categorized the differences, on which basis they are different from each other. So I have divided this in few. For example, the jurisprudence differences on halal seafood resulting from classification of the, for example, classification of primary sources. For example, when they categorize the Quran or Hadith, they put this Hadith and Quran in different categories. So when they put in different categories, indirectly it will affect the interpretation. And also about the authenticity of the sources, this is also another one. For example, just I want to mention here about the Hanafi. about the Hanafi school, for example, when we are talking about the general, even if we accept the general, that means in general the seafood is halal, according if we say, but normally in Hanafi they don't accept one individual reporter saying to limit the general. Normally they don't accept. So there is one hadith reported from Ibn Umar about this issue. So in Hanafi they don't accept the basically khabar wahid or the hadith which is reported by one narrator. He don't accept to limit the general rule, for example, based on several reasoning systems which I have told you. They have different interpretation from primary sources. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.